Not as good as I wished. I hit him real good on Father's Day. Not the other day. I was having trouble in the fairways. It's always something.
My I'm an average golfer, that's fine with me.
You are or you're not?
Average, not so. I mean, it's not so great.
I made it a point to try and learn the game this year a little better. Signed up for a membership, which makes me go.
Sore throat, so my little guys brought me 9 cough drops. We ready?
We're ready whenever you are.
Okay. Good evening and thank you for attending tonight's city council meeting. For those who are attending remotely, the camera in the council chambers is set up to show those attending in person tonight. The platform we are using has a raise hand feature. You will notice a picture of a hand in the upper right-hand corner. When we reach the point in the meeting where the public has the opportunity to address council, you can click the button and be given your opportunity to address council. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Skelly,
Here.
Councilor Dillabaugh,
Here.
Councilor Fisher.
Here.
Councilor Kennedy. Here. Councilor Powers.
Here.
Councilor Reish.
Here.
Councilor Scamperly.
Here.
Quorum present.
We have one presentation tonight regarding city-owned property.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This evening, there's a resolution to declare surplus property and allow the city manager to have a surplus property auction. This includes 12 properties, which are any of the properties that were not sold at the last auction, which was held on May 4th, along with 502 King Street, which is the former Murray's Food Store, which was only not included in that last auction because of my oversight. So that property is also listed in this upcoming auction request. And this would cover all of the property that have been deemed surplus. So these are primarily vacant properties with the exception of the property at 502 King Street. You do have a full kind of booklet of what those properties are, along with color photos, information on their lot size, zoning, and history as we know it. Happy to answer any questions on any particular property.
Pricing's kind of based on square footage or whether there's a building.
Well, the property at King Street is listed, we're proposing it be reduced to $5,000. We have had this property for, this will be our 4th year, so we will now actually be paying taxes on this property to the county and school. We were successful in advocating to the BAR that the value be reduced to $5,000 because the city has been unsuccessful at selling it at the previously listed prices. At this point, we don't really have, I'm not saying that a builder or someone with some expertise can't invest in that property and save it, but it's getting to the point where the city will be faced with doing demolition very soon. So we do think that this is a fair price for the property, especially considering that the building is not condemned and it could be saved at this point, but it isn't something that the city is really able to invest funding in at this time. That's the only property that has a structure on it. All of the others are vacant, primarily non-conforming lots.
That's the King Street property you're talking about?
502 King Street is the only property with a structure.
Maurice?
And then these are primarily tax sale items that we took through tax.
Every one of these properties has been taken through the tax sale foreclosure. And all of them have been publicly auctioned previously and not sold, including 502 King Street.
We still own Diamond, Shade, the lot across from River Resorts, the former River Resorts or Holiday Inn, whatever that was called. The cheese plant. I don't know beyond that, but I mean, there's still some that we need to address, are working on.
Yes, oh, absolutely. This is the list of what have been determined surplus properties. So they're properties that the city does not have an interest in. Interest is a pretty general term, meaning we don't have an ongoing project or grant tied to it. It isn't a value as a city facility, city park. There's a number of properties that we still own may have contamination issues, and they may be in some state of being looked into, including the cheese site factories. That's actually that's 9 parcels, individual tax map parcels make up what we collectively refer to as the cheese plant. We've also acquired the adjacent properties, which are formerly Club 1812 and the parking lot for 1812. So the city now is the owner of that entire block, but we know of some potential contamination issues at all of those properties. So those are things that we're currently exploring with the EPA and the DEC for that specific. Then obviously we do own the Diamond, Shade Roller site, several others. Yes, these are simply the properties that have been determined surplus and don't have any known reason to really keep them. They're mostly non-conforming lots within neighborhoods.
Didn't we have a hit on the 502 King Street not too long ago? Didn't somebody
In 2019,
they put an offer and then they withdrew it? Was that one? Because there's no parking. That was the issue with that.
there is no parking for this
Yeah.
property right now. The parcel at 502 King Street is the building.
Parcel, yeah.
The previous owner retained the vacant lot behind it, which was at one point in time used for parking. There was interest. I went back in the files.
This property just reminded me that was somebody put an offer and then
The city's never received a formal purchase offer. There was an interested party
maybe that was it.
in 2019, but that didn't pan out. That was when the property was listed for $7,800.
What is the current parking available on that site?
There is no parking available on that
So,
site.
all right, because it says limited parking available, so I didn't know.
High street parking.
I mean, you could probably pull up a car behind it technically, but it wouldn't really meet, you couldn't meet the city's parking ordinance.
And then the other entity, and I forget the name, owns 10 or 12 properties.
The other entity,
Yeah, the other city entity that you're in charge of.
the land bank,
Yes.
the Ogdensburg Land Bank owns at least 16 parcels.
We'll get a report on that at a later date.
The land bank just gave an annual report at your March meeting. They're required to give an annual report by the state of New York. I'm happy to give that report to you again, Counselor.
No. Just curious how things are going.
We're gearing up to do 3 demolitions. 918 Mansion Avenue, 517 Rensselaer Avenue, and 327 Madison Avenue. Those are a little behind schedule because of the utility disconnects that are pending, but those should be down by the end of July. We are currently in the process of doing a rehab that won't really start physical construction until September 1st of 332 Park Street. We also own 416 Green Street, which is the former synagogue. We are working with Renew Architecture, who has put together conceptual drawings for the rehabilitation of that property. It is a former assembly space and will be converted into a single family home. So we're working through that. We also own 625 Franklin Street. We have significant lead issues there that we're working through. So we're not doing the extensive rehab that was proposed because it's cost prohibitive. We are working right now with North Country Housing Council to redo the front porches and then put that up for auction. We also own, and in their process of selling, 940 Lafayette Street, which was our first fully completed rehab. And we own 6 properties where we did demolition in 2019, and we didn't sell those. We did 11 demolitions in 2019 and we sold 6 lots. And we also sold the lot at 905 Mechanic Street.
Yes. Good, thank you. Can we come up with a price for the old St. Joe's and maybe post that, put that, maybe a few signs or whatever and try to dump that too?
We absolutely can. You can modify the resolution and do that tonight if you'd like, or you can address that at a later meeting.
I'm comfortable with that, modifying the resolution.
I couldn't hear it all, I'm sorry, Steve. I couldn't hear it.
The old St. Joe's on Lafayette.
420 Lafayette.
It encompasses pretty much most of the block except for the beautiful mansion that sits on the
Yes.
Franklin Street side. It got, I don't know how it happened, but it was separated somehow and then the mansion got to stay and
Yeah.
they let the home go and we got to take it down. So we shall get something back.
Or if you want to bring a resolution, so you have a little time to work on it for the next meeting, that's fine too.
I just want to, like we discussed, just want to get an idea what fair market value would be. It's a, excuse me, a good lot, good sized lot, et cetera. So I think that's why we didn't include it in this list.
Are there any limitations?
It's presently located in the city's moderate density residential zoning district, but the property is 2 acres. So it does qualify, it meets the minimum standards for what's called the planned development district, which would be the most advantageous route for a developer looking to develop it. That a proposal under the planned development district would be presented to city council. It would go to the planning board for a more traditional site plan review, and a recommendation would be sent back to the city council. You all would be required to have a public hearing on that proposal. And then should it be approved, they can go forward. The benefit of the planned development district is that there are no prescribed setbacks. One of the benefits of the planned development district is there are no setbacks and there's nothing that is specifically prohibited in terms of reuse. So it's really a blank slate for a developer to put together a proposal. It does have to go through a more rigorous public hearing process, but there's a lot more flexibility. So something like condominiums, which would be prohibited in the moderate density residential district, could be approved through the planned development district for that site.
Thank you.
I have a question. So the Adams Ave property, that's business, that's the vacant land adjacent to the ball field.
Mhm.
Looks like the Pepsi-Cola plant on one side of it. That's business district. Is that does that also have a paper street on the opposite side of what would be the Pepsi-Cola property?
It has 2 paper streets, frontage on 2 paper streets.
Okay. Very good. And that's, somebody can build on that.
Well, it meets the minimum standards
Okay.
for development, but it may require development of additional street frontage and extension of water and sewer lines. So
That's kind of where I was going, right? So somebody could buy that, put a business in or a residence, but there may be a street that has to be
extended.
extended a little bit there. It doesn't look like much, maybe half the size of that property. And then the water and sewer, is there water and sewer right there on that street?
I don't have the answer to that for you, but
Right.
I can certainly get that to the city manager to get back to council.
Okay. And I'm just wondering because, I mean, the price tag on it was what, 3,500? So I'm looking at that property and I'm looking at the prices and I'm looking at 502 King Street, which is the old Paul Murray store. And it would seem if somebody was to invest in a business, I mean, they both have their advantages. Could you have a business in the old Paul Murray store? The 502 King Street, could there be a business there?
Yeah, yes.
But the parking would be limited to the street parking.
Well, yes, except that our ordinance does not allow on-street parking to qualify to meet your parking need. So they would have to go through site plan review more than likely, and they could seek a waiver of parking. I would have reasonable expectations that that would be approved.
And the reason that I'm asking that is because I'm thinking about proposing an amendment to reduce that price. And I know that we can talk about that when it comes up for discussion. This is obviously the meeting, but so I'm asking as many questions as I can.
Sure.
I'd like to sell the property because as you stated, the city probably doesn't need to acquire it. And so as another property. And so if we can figure out a way to sell it, that is interest and get somebody to buy that, I think the price can be reduced to what that other price is, which is 3,500, but we'll talk about that when we get to discussion.
And as far as the Diamond property, what's the status of the marketing strategy?
We have an RFP that is pretty well drafted and will be available by the end, well, June 30th, so that's Wednesday. And those responses are requested back mid-September. It's either the 14th or the 15th. That's
Great.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We have 2 public hearings tonight. The first is a public hearing seeking comment on the city's intent to apply to New York State Home and Community Renewal under the 2021 CFA Community Development Block Grant Program. I will open that to public hearing up now. If anyone has a comment, please come down to the podium and have 5 minutes. If anyone's attending remotely, use the raise hand feature.
I do not see any hands raised.
We have a second public hearing in regard an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement to operate the Bisky Visitor Center to the Greater Augsburg Chamber of Commerce. It is going to be bill number 40, and I will open that to public hearing now. Anyone would like to speak? Down.
I'm just curious, how long is the license? Is it a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year agreement or?
Through the end of the year unless it's extended and I don't know if it's extended by council or if the lease implies that.
No, the lease will apply if both parties are satisfied. It'll extend for up to 3 years.
Okay, so it's a 3 year agreement that we're signing.
Oh,
Anyone else like to speak? Anyone attending remotely?
I do not see any hands raised.
I declare this public hearing closed. And this brings us to personal appearance. At this time, would anyone like to address the council? Come on down, podium, 5 minutes.
All right. Good evening. I'd like to address a recent news article in the Watertown Daily Times regarding possible staffing cuts to the Augsburg Police Department. In the article, a city representative states, "We've worked the numbers and it's just an idea. I don't see a different or better idea and I've thought a lot about it." Since your comments, I've thought a lot about it as well. It's clear that the county will not be stepping up patrols or taking over our third shift. Again, making comments about the county in the press does not seem to be working, so you might want to try a different approach. Anyway, back to my ideas. Based on your calcs on estimated sales tax revenue without home rule, the worst case scenario would see roughly $2,533,090 in revenue, a decrease of roughly $1.2 million from the 2021 budget. Then if another $1.99 tax cut is implemented in 2022, that's an 11.1% tax decrease. So overall, that'd be 21% in 2 years. That will result in another $501,000 decrease in revenue based on a total assessed valuation of roughly $291 million. The total decrease in revenue for 2022 would be $1,685,397. You might want to think about holding off on the tax cut for a year until we see actual numbers on the sales tax receipts. For 2022, the city will no longer be funding the library, savings of $162,000. In addition, there are only 18 firefighters on staff right now. Does not look like anything will be filled to bring them back to their budget amount of 21. Based on the salary and benefit savings, this will result in an additional $212,000 in savings for 2021. This assumes that the FRB is paying for the retirement incentive, as previously stated. The city will also be receiving $1.14 million from the federal government as part of the COVID-19 relief bill. I know we haven't received it yet, we don't know, but the Democrats seem happy with handing out money, so I'm sure we'll see it. I know at a prior council meeting, it was stated that uses for this money have not been clarified, but in a press release from Senator Schumer on March 8, 2021, he stated, New York's counties and municipalities were loud and clear. They needed help, and they needed it now to keep frontline workers on the job and to prevent brutal service cuts. That leads me to believe that the money can be used to provide services to the taxpayers, including the police department. I know this is a one-time windfall from the federal government that will not be a revenue source again, but it does allow us to keep adequate services for at least another year until we see where the sales tax revenues really end up, because nobody knows where they're going to be, and I get it. It's tough. Now, if we take the savings stated above along with the COVID-19 relief money, that gives you roughly $1.5 million, leaving a gap in revenues of roughly $171,400, which we could take from the 2020 usable year-end general fund balance of $3.142 million. It still allows your tax cut and maintains the staffing levels at the police department that most taxpayers would like to see. Anyway, hope you consider this rather than devastating another 10 families and forcing them to leave this community. On top of that, crime will undoubtedly rise, likely making other families decide to leave and making it far less likely that families would want to relocate into the city. This might put a damper on ensuring the survival of the city while working equally as hard on the revival of the city. I also did some homework a little bit on the federal government from the Department of Treasury. Coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds, interim final rule. In it, under section 35, it states, hiring state and local government staff, payroll, covered benefits, and other costs associated with the recipient, increasing the number of its employees up to the number of employees that it employed on January 27, 2020. I'm looking at this year's budget. And in 2020, we had 33 and a half policemen. 2021, we're down to 27 and a half. There were 28 firemen, we're down to 21. Obviously, we're not looking to go back to those numbers. That's impossible. But I just think cutting 10 cops is not a very good idea. It really is. If you guys think it is, I don't know where you're living. But I really, and I do have the numbers that I came up with. I used the stuff that was available to me. I'm more than happy. I've got a spreadsheet on it. I can give it to you guys. I can email it to you. There's got to be other areas, and the first thing, always looking to cut employees, because those people will never come back. So it's something to think about. And if the crime rate goes up, there's a lot of elderly people in this city. You think they're going to want to stick around? I just don't see it. So anyway.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to speak? Yeah, go. I'm sorry, what do you have to say?
No, I think the mayor was, trying to point out the significance of the reductions. He hadn't talked to any of us. There's no plan to do anything like that. And so I just want people to know that.
It's me.
So.
It's not a message to our police, our community. It's a message to the county. If for a year and a half, we've been fighting with them and they've been insistent on taking our money. First, they had the reason, Dan was there. They think that New York State may put additional Medicaid costs on it, and that has. Second, gentleman Canton was upset that we had such a nice football field and they didn't have a football field. Another was, trying to remember it all. It was, what have we done with our extra $900,000? And then the big one was Ogdensburg gets too much money. And they had all the towns and the villages convinced that Ogdensburg got too much money because the last penny, we got 6.44% of the last penny. Just like we got that same amount from the first 3 pennies of sales tax. Well, the towns and villages share 43% of the first 3 pennies, but they only share 10% of the last penny. So here's how it works. You have 4 pennies, every penny generating $15 million for all of us. So the first 3 pennies, $7.5 million goes to the county. $7.5 million goes to the towns, the villages, and the city. 50-50. The last penny, the county took $13 million of the last penny, the 8th penny. Ogdensburg got $900,000. The towns and villages had to share $1.1 million. So they convinced all the towns and villages that we were bad people, taking too much money, terrible argument. So we worked. We found the numbers. We brought them to them. We said, it's not us, it's the county. They took 83%. They have 13 million of 15 million. They do not want to share the last 2 million. So they're going to, so now we're pushed into a situation. So we go out on our own. We're going to preempt, we're going to collect our own. We get 1.5 cents of the first 3 cents. The last penny, with the legislation passed, we'll get the whole penny. We didn't get the legislation. Can please, let me finish. Please. More, please, let me finish. Can I finish, Chris? Okay, so the last penny, they are going to take the last penny. The message is to the county. You are not going to benefit financially from this. If you take this kind of money from us, with all that's been done and all the hardship that's been done, it amounts to $2 million. And if you think you're going to just take unnecessarily $1 to $1.5 million from this community, you're going to take something with it. And unfortunately, they do policing and we do policing. They need to let this go. We've shown that they have collected more money. We are not taking too much. They have benefited by us being in agreement. They are taking far more money from being in this agreement with us. We're not shortchanging them, taking a dime more. We're taking less. Let us go on our own. Let us, 3 people on the legislators signed supporting Ogdensburg. But guess what? This city supported the county getting that extra penny every time. Every time. With only 3 people supporting it, the Senate, the Assembly, they're like, well, the county doesn't support it. We supported them, and they prospered from that last penny. So if they take this, are we going to do without that money? I mean, we're going to be right back to having no money. So they need to know there's a consequence. Just let us go on our own. Leave us alone. Let us collect our money. Our police department's intact. They should be appreciating our police department. Our police department does so much for the county in addition to our city. They don't rebuild our bridge. They don't take care of a road in here. We do our own policing. We help them with policing. Every community in this county, when their property taxes aren't collected, the county pays their school. The county pays that town and village. We pay our school over $800,000 a year. We pay that county over $300,000 a year. Messina gets over $500,000.
And we're the only city in New York State, and the county wants to collect all the money and have you pay for those services that they should be providing. So he makes valid points.
This message is not against the police. It's for the county.
I'm sure, no. They've had countless meetings. Well, he's always going to say that. Yeah.
And you should be talking to Joe Lightfoot and Kevin A.
And it's a legitimate,
He can't handle it, doesn't want to take it.
it is a
Money's a
legitimate,
lot. Let this sales tax, let us move on.
it is a legitimate concern that you people all pay county real property taxes, but you get no benefit from the sheriff's department. They don't come into Ogdensburg very rarely. So you're paying twice for the same service. These, progressive counties have countywide real property assessment. They're just taken from these communities here and making them suffer. They don't understand the consequences. But all they want is more money and less service to you people. And I think that's the point the mayor was trying to make.
So I've tried everything. They just are bound and determined. They want this one. So anyways,
Right.
come on up.
No,
Come on up.
yeah, can we,
How do you think? I just want everyone to know this makes all of us uneasy. I mean, this is a tragedy for no reason. Like we could be doing so many things for our city right now, but with the possibility of that money loss, we're in limbo. And then they have to know that they think they're going to have this big benefit from taking. How can you not be satisfied with 13 million out of 15 million? You should go over to the county and explain to them, why isn't 13 million enough? Leave us alone. We're on our own. You wanted us out. You said we took too much. We're on our own. Leave us alone. Support us for our sales tax the way we supported you.
can we go back to personal appearance? If somebody wants to come up, they're more than happy to come to the mic, but it's not going this way. We're not going to have to go back and forth.
Please, everybody,
Come down.
come up and talk. So, is there anyone else who would like
Mike
to
was on
speak?
his way to the
I'm
podium
sorry,
before
Mike,
he was
I'm sorry.
interrupted.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening. My name is Mike Julie, live at 214 Hamilton Street in Ogdensburg. Appreciate the opportunity to address council this evening. First, I want to speak to the issue of filling 3 vacancies existing on the library board. As was pointed out at the last council meeting, in January, City Council made 4 appointments to the Planning Board, 5 appointments to the Zoning Board of Appeals, 3 appointments to the Land Bank. On February 8th, when the City Council had on its agenda the reappointment of Mike Frary to the Vacancy Committee, but allegedly learned that day that Mr. Frary was ineligible for reappointment, rather than canvass the community to see if anyone might be interested in that position, after some discussion that evening, City Council appointed Mark Knowlton. And I have no objection to Mr. Knowlton's appointment. I believe this committee must ever act on a vacancy on City Council. He will act responsibly. But my point in bringing this up is that each of these openings was dealt with in a timely or in an expedited manner. Yet the library board has waited 6 months for Mayor Skelly to fill these vacancies. While it might not be an apples to apples comparison, in that City Council action was required to make the appointments earlier this year, but in the case of the library board, the mayor makes the appointments. The inconsistency in treatment of making appointments to these open seats to me is embarrassing. The power may rest with the mayor to make the library board appointments, but this 6-month delay in making the appointments to me constitutes an abuse of power by the mayor. And I encourage other members of city council to try to persuade Mayor Skelly to fill the 3 open library board seats now. I was going to comment on the discussion that just took place. I'll just offer an opinion that I don't think the strategy to list police cuts as a consequence of the potential loss of sales tax revenue was a wise decision. Finally, speaking to the uncertainty of sales tax revenue in 2022. In an article in Northern New York 360 posted on June 16th, St. Lawrence County Attorney Stephen Button is quoted as stating, staff at the State Department of Taxation and Finance indicated to county officials that the county can continue to collect an additional 1% of sales tax after Ogdensburg preempts. Question, has either the city manager or the city attorney contacted the State Department of Taxation and Finance to see if this is indeed the position of the state? If yes, what was the answer? And if not, why haven't city officials asked this question of that department? Further, in the same news article, Mr. Button offered an opinion that notice requirements might prohibit the city of Ogdensburg from beginning its sales tax collection through preemption until March 1st of 2022. I searched the internet for New York state law or regulation about this issue without success. I read Mr. Jelly's comments in the same article that the city disagrees with Mr. Button's opinion that the city can begin collecting 1.5% sales tax on December 1. I encourage city council to meet with the city attorney soon in executive session to ask about this, to obtain reference to law and regulations on this issue, so you can give the city manager informed direction about this matter. As I interpret Mr. Button's comments, in theory, it appears the city might have exposure whereby it could not generate sales tax revenue between December 1st and March 1st. If the county doesn't have to share anything after November 30th, but we can't start collecting until March 1st, that's a 3-month gap of no sales tax revenue. And if I'm misinterpreting that, if I'm wrong, I hope somebody straightens me out. But if that's the interpretation that the county attorney's offering, I think you need some answers from our attorney, the city attorney, about the validity of that argument. A very serious issue that really hasn't been talked about yet, at least publicly here. So thank you for your time.
Say, if you don't mind, Mike, would you like to? Okay, so the first, it turns out, well, we had an agreement with the county to notify them by July 1st. So we did it early, but it turns out that, you know, known to us, the New York State Department of Taxation does have that rule. So the county.
And why was it unknown to you then?
It was unknown.
Why was it unknown? Don't you have a duty to know that before making a decision?
I guess, Mike, I don't know.
Well, that's why you have management, that's why you have a city attorney, and you should be getting that information before you make decisions. That's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous.
Well, Mike, you know what? It's not the answer you like. I just gave you an answer. And I don't think anyone, and the other thing on the library, Mike, on the library, I'm not satisfied with the library. I'm not satisfied they're open 37 and a half hours a week. That's my problem. They gave me 3 people they were appointing, and I want a different mindset. I believe that there's no reason with the funding given to that library and the staff they have that they are not open some evenings and they are not open on Saturday.
How many phone calls have you got from people saying they want to sit in there?
I'm working on it, Mike, and I'll get through when I get to it.
6 months.
You know, they never brought it to me in first one. Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak?
Good evening, council. I don't have anything planned. I just, listening to some of the comments, I thought it was important to step up, maybe say a few words. Many of you know, maybe you don't know, my major educational goal in life was to be a history teacher. So I'm a fan of history. I taught economics for a while. I have a pretty good understanding of both. About 2 years ago, we're going to go walk through history here. About 2 years ago, there's a campaign on. And somebody said, we're going to cut 25% in taxes. And I said, geez, there's only one way you can do that. You're going to have to cut the city departments. You have to cut the fire, you're going to have to cut the police. And I was called a liar. A lot of things in life I can handle, but being called a liar, I stood up, I said, no, I'm not a liar. I'm not a liar. And people said, those are our friends and families. We'll never cut them. And they got cut. So when someone stands up and says double-digit cuts, that's what we're going to believe, because I believe actions, not words. We make that statement in public, people move. Police officers are already looking for more jobs somewhere else. We're losing people. Let me continue with my history lesson. The history of Northern New York is the history of public employment. It's the history of unionized industry. That's where people earn their money from the 1950s till today. But unionized industry left us back in the 80s. There was an economic situation where it was cheaper to go overseas, so they left. So here we are in Northern New York with one major industry remaining, public employment. As I look at the dais in front of me, I can only see one person who doesn't directly benefit from public employment, because anyone who's paid to be up there is benefiting from public employment. There are people up there who accept a public employment retirement. Okay, that's what we are here. When I taught in the classroom, I used to show my students how important public employment was. I'd say, raise your hand if a parent works for the public, and I'd give them all, are they a teacher? Are they a DPW worker? Are they a police officer? And they'd raise a hand. I say, raise both hands if both parents are. And around my classroom of 20-some kids, you'd see 17, 18 kids with both hands raised. When you cut public employment, you cut the lifeblood of the North Country. I remember when they laid off teachers back in 2008, there was a popular hardware store around the corner here that now houses the rescue squad that went out of business. Businesses rely on public employment income. They do. You want to talk sales tax? I don't know if you know this, but I'll help you out. Sales tax comes from when you sell goods and services, you have to pay taxes on them. People aren't buying goods and services if they don't have money, if they don't have gainful employment, if they don't have discretionary income. You take middle income jobs out of this community, you lose that. I don't care what your fight is with the county, who, by the way, are mostly public employees. Okay, pay attention to what's going on around you. Don't try to make decisions based on what you think you know. I think Mr. Tooley just illustrated very well that you got to think and do your research before you make decisions, public employees.
I would just like to say, I have a little history, and the Financial Restructuring Board said that in 2023, the city could not pay its bills. And when I came to office as mayor and I went around departments, many departments, their copy was denied opponents. We didn't have money. So we do have now.
Good evening.
Hi.
Hi. I'm new and I came here tonight actually to find out what the process is for applying to help the board at the library. I just moved to Ogdensburg about 30 days ago, and I read in the paper that you had these vacancies. So I wanted to know, what is the process?
If you could go on, on my Ogdensburg email and give me your contact, I'll call you up, or I can make, you have a paper and pen, I'll give you my phone number.
Great.
Okay. It's 323-3702. Call me and
Okay. And now that is a good question. Are there certain qualifications or?
We'll go over that.
Okay, great.
We'll talk. Call me if you want to be on it. We'll talk. Thank you. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
I'll be quick. First of all, just like to share a couple of things. Firefighters are worried that they're going to lose their jobs. I don't want any of these guys to lose their jobs. The chief and police are doing a great job. You're close when you ran for office. Okay, you haven't lived up to them yet. All right. We are not looking to take away the jobs of the hardworking employees in this city of Ogdensburg. These are friends, family, and patrons of local businesses. Mr. Skelly's comment. I have the utmost respect for our city employees. Okay, our mayor's comment. I really, you have some great points on the sales tax issue. Okay, I don't have a problem with that. I think there's some great points. Mr. Tooley had some. Mr. McRoberts had some. You know what really bothers me sometimes is when you have people that want to help. All right, you don't want any help. You don't want to sit down with these people and talk with them and get their ideas and maybe take theirs. The first thing you did on the sales tax issue didn't work. The way you guys went to try to whatever your philosophy was with the county didn't work. Mr. Fisher, you're a businessman, right? Mr. Skelly, businessman? Captain, you're a businessman? When the first thing you do doesn't work, what do? Do you put your head down and forget about it and not work for different solutions to get things done? You've got to do that, okay? You got to have a little diversity. You got to get yourself back to the table, okay? You got to have some inclusion. When you have inclusion, you have a voice at the table, okay? And then you belong to it, okay? And when you belong to it, you have a voice that's heard. Now stop the blaming, stop all the BS, okay? Get yourself together, all right, this entire board here, and start over again. The first wave did not work, okay? So let's try something different. And you know, the other thing, a couple of things is it really astounded me that the mayor makes a comment in the paper, and not one of you get people sitting at this table was, you know, that's not your opinion. There's no communication here between you guys. Oh, don't tell me there's no communication. You guys get together a lot for your communication stuff, okay? So, all right. We had a great audit. And then we didn't like the audit. Okay, we get mad at the people that did the audit. Okay, we've lost some great people in this community. Okay, some great people, some great workers. Okay, it's a travesty. You said I feel real bad that you're using the police department right now as a scapegoat to sell your point. Yes, you did. You used the fire department. What happened? You laid people off. Okay. Now we're holding these guys hostage, that department hostage. All right. Which is an absolute sin. And I'll tell you, I don't know who wrote this quote, but I felt kind of in love with it when I read it. The difference between success and failure is 6 inches between your ears. 6 inches between your ears. If you cut that department, okay, you're doomed for failure. This city is doomed for failure. All right? And just to leave you here, I'm going to do a lot of reading. Just happened last night that this epitomizes this city of Ogdensburg so good. It was talking about good leadership. Good leadership. They inspire and motivate others. Do we do that here? If you're able to inspire and motivate, you're always going to hold on to great talent. They hold themselves and others accountable. We haven't motivated. We haven't kept great talent. You just had 2 great workers from the comptroller's office leave. Why? Admirable leaders recognize and nurture talent. This leadership here does not do that. But you also are not threatened by it. Bad leaders are threatened by good talent. You've lost a lot of good talent here in this community, okay? Our city needs a bright future filled with unity, respect, acceptance, prosperity, and bipartisan leadership with integrity. Anything less is unacceptable. Can you be the leader to do that, Mayor? You don't want to answer that question, do you? Thank you.
Good evening, council. My name is Richard Breen. I am, and I will be sitting one of your 7 seats within the next 4 years. I don't really care if it's Mayor Skelly's seat, Bill's seat, or any of them. But one thing I really am mad over is everybody that comes to this meeting and listens thinks I'm in your pocket because I agree with some of the things that you say, some of the things that you're heading for. I had a lady that signed my independent, wouldn't sign my independent petition because she thought and she heard from people that I was into your pocket. Okay? Let me tell you something. I don't like certain people. That's no cop. The 4-3 issue that's been going on for 2 years is a bunch of crap. You 3 people started it. You need to finish it. Okay? Mr. Scamparelli, you've been doing your job for 12 years. You're new at it. She's been doing it for almost 4. Mr. Powers did it, then he left. Then he come back. And he come back, when you say Republicans, Democrats, this city isn't run under Republican Democrats. This city is run under one thing. If you're my friend, I'm going with you. You know how you tell that? You don't follow bylaws of the Democratic Party. Democratic Party doesn't follow its own bylaws. I have been the treasurer for the Democratic Party for almost 10 years. Okay? I got a problem. I talk to the people. Just like Mr. Waffler says. I go to talk to the people that I want to know the information from. Before I open up my big ass mouth, stick my foot in my mouth, don't know what the heck I'm talking about. Okay? We wanted a beach. We wanted a beach here forever. Mr. Shaver, who was a city councilman, wanted to put a beach right down by the community center. Why? Because it's close into the city. Where are we going to go now? Back where we had it before. Anybody figure about the guys that are up in the second ward that has family? We're going to bust them down there like we used to? We're going to do that for us? They're city taxpayers. We're going to do that? We're going to let them ride their bikes? What if they get left down there? I was left down there when I was a kid. My brothers and sisters were. We had a nice walk home. It was a hell of a walk. Okay? This is what we're trying to figure out here. The fire department, city manager. I have no idea what your qualifications are, and it don't really bother me. What I know for a fact is we need an interim fire chief, period. Number one, if it even was imaginable that our fire chief, who is also our city manager, drove past the fire to get a truck. So he sees this all big truck, takes it down to a fire. That's the first one. That's a big no-no. One is, if any of you 7 people up here, when you evaluate him, give him a perfect score or whatever, you got to be wrong. You need to just get your butt up, walk out the door and say, I'm not coming back. Because he's wrong. He should have stopped there. He knows where the polices are. He doesn't even wear a fire chief suit when he goes to a fire and the fire's still burning. There's pictures all over the internet with him standing there. Who the heck knows who he is? Just some guy that thinks he can go in there and walk around. No, can't have that. And by the way, I do know what I'm talking about when it comes to fires. I taught firefighting on board Navy ships for over 7 years. Every 3 days, fire drills. Every 3 days. At sea, big time drills. Go in the shipyard, come out of the shipyard, you go to big drills. Whole wide. I had just as good qualifications as he does being a fire chief. That's why we need somebody to let him do his job with all this interest stuff going on. Let the fire chief come and report to him like they used to. You don't got to pay him whatever the other fire chief was getting. Give him half. You got guys here that would love to do it, just half. Have them do it part-time. Who's keeping track of all the PMS, which is maintenance that you have to do on your equipment? Who's keeping track of that? Sure the heck it ain't him. He got too much other stuff to keep track. But we did hire back somebody for the recreation department. Why? Weren't we doing good without it? Don't know what we're paying her. Where's her office going to be? It's got to have an office. You're just getting ready to start doing it. You're going to give it to the people down there. You're going to give it to our community people again. So who do we got to go to? Got to go to him. If we want to rent that space out. Is it right or wrong? Don't know. But when I sit 1 of 7, you'll know exactly how I feel about a lot of other things. Don, it's nice to see you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else like to speak?
I may look a little covered in wood chips. I may look a little perspiry. I may look a little sunburned, a little tired, but I just want to thank a number of people today for the community garden. This garden was a project with the Ogdensburg Boys and Girls Club and the Rotary Club and the community a number of years ago. The fort was kind enough to allow us to place the garden on their property. We've had to move it 3 times because, well, the fort is expanding, the fort is growing, and it's looking great down there. My year last year as president of the New York State Association of Realtors, my presidential project, one of 5 throughout the state, was funds for this garden. So in conjunction with the New York State Association of Realtors, the St. Lawrence County Association of Realtors, John Anderson from Lowville, who milled all the wood for us, another company, he got all the metal for us, and all of the hard work and labor of the Rotary Club, the fort. There's a number of people here that have helped and done things for us, but today we finally have the garden beds all together, so we just finished. We have a number of people from the towers that are planting there, and we have a number of beds that the Rotary Club and the fort and other community volunteers will be growing produce for the food pantries as we have for the last 8 years. I want to thank Mayor Nelson. He was one of the ones that initially helped us with the first build project, and then Mayor Wayne Ashley, who helped with the second build project. We've had a good support from our community, and we thank everyone that does community service, but especially for this fort and for the fort and for the Rotary Club for their work on this. One thing I just want to make clear, though, is that the produce that's grown there is either grown for a bed that has been leased by someone for $25 for the season that goes towards maintenance, or is going to the food pantries. So it's not just for people to go down and pick what they'd like. If they need help, I will have a sign down there with my name on it. And if they are in need, if they're hungry, we would be more than happy to make sure that they have sufficient food. But again, just thanks to everyone and thanks to the community for all the work that everyone has done. Our individual volunteers, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak?
Just got a few questions here, which I'm sure they won't be answered, but before I start with those, like I yelled back there, when I was asked to come up here, with your statement now, Mayor, do you plan on cutting the police department?
I'm not answering any questions.
You've been in a talkative mood all night. So is that a yes or no? Okay, just so it's on record, I asked you that and you're not going to answer. So basically I'm up here to put some of these questions on record. So Mayor won't answer that one. Let's see here. First question, I guess, is to the entire council. When did you as a council meet to vote on the appointments of the recent department head hires? Nobody? You guys remember having a vote?
Nope.
Okay. Just wondering because on August 24th of last year, you guys passed a resolution. That's your job. And it appears that the city manager was the one that made the appointments. So are they legal appointments? Did you answer that one, Mayor? More here. Hello? Jeffrey, right here. Okay, you don't want to answer that one. What about you, Steve? Got any answer to that?
Jerry, it's not a question and answer period.
Oh, but you guys can ask questions,
It's an
right?
opportunity to.
I'm not talking to you.
Make a
Be quiet.
presentation.
Be quiet, Mr. Reach. Number 2. And I guess this goes for our new director of rec. I don't know how to get a hold of her because I've been banned from all contact with our city manager through email, phone calls, stuff like that. Because he's called the cops on me. He said, don't call him. Don't send emails to him because I'm a bad guy. So I guess I'm wondering who has radio contact for boaters that are coming into the city to either visit or for the boaters that pay money down there for slips for when they need assistance to come in or they need a pump out. Who has the radio contact that we call as voters?
Someone will get back to you, Jerry, on that. That's-
Oh, will I?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Third, when did the city get into the business to allowing businesses to operate without proper certifications and permits? Example, movie theater. Are we doing that now? Well, it's an easy council not to get eye contact with. Okay, no answer. And to respond to Mr. Breen, there was a lot of things I agreed with that you said, having to do with this guy right here. But I'll tell you why there's no fire chief or interim fire chief is because Mr. Jelly, he changed the qualifications to take the civil service exam. How he did that is beyond me, because that's not his job or duties or right or privilege. And the sole reason that was done was so this guy couldn't take the test for the third time and pass it for the third time, be the only guy on the list for the third time. So that probably will answer one or two of your questions. And he changed the qualifications so nobody locally could take the test either, because he knows there's nobody here that's going to take the test. And if someone did qualify for the stupid qualifications that he put out there, they'd come in and make you look as incompetent as we all know you are.
That's enough.
No, it's not enough. I got 5 minutes.
Enough directing towards an individual. Go on with your next question.
Okay. When did they reinstate the policy of department heads having a take-home vehicle? Last I knew, quite a few years ago, council put an end to that to save money. Now we're cruising around at 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, looking for supporters of the first responders' addresses to harass them. Did you guys put that into play? No, you didn't, did you, Bill? No. So let's see. I think that's about all I got. Oh, back to the PD. Are you going to cut the PD? Mayor Skelly, you going to cut the PD? Time's up. Yep.
Does anyone else like to speak? Is there anyone on remotely attending?
I do not see any hands raised.
And this brings us to correspondence. Do we have a correspondence?
We do not have any.
Okay. Next, we have consent agenda that claims enumerated in general fund warrant number 12-2021 in the amount of $758,818.05. And library warrant number 12-2021 in the amount of $8,737.54. And capital fund warrant number 12-2021 in the amount of $0. And community development fund warrant number 12-2021 in the amount of $0. And community renewal fund warrant number 12-2021 in the amount of $0, as audited, be and the same hereby are ordered paid. I so move.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
The payment to Dank for 178,000, Steve, would be, is that the full year contract? Is that for water and sewer both, or?
Yep, it's for our agreement with our agreement for technical support with Dank for wastewater and sewer, for wastewater and water services.
And is that expiring soon, or?
Oh, I believe the contract has another 2 years.
It does, okay.
Porter Lee Corporation?
Say it again, Counselor.
Porter Lee Corporation?
Don't know, Counselor. We'll get back to you.
$9,000. Transaction number 5557.
That's it.
I just have one question on the enterprise.
Hang on a second. It's helpful. We can do this drill every meeting. Doesn't matter to me. I've said to all of you. There's far and away too many transactions on here for us to be prepared to talk all of them. You get this agenda on Thursday. If you could look at it sometime between Thursday and the meeting, send your questions to us, be prepared to answer. If the intent's to make us look stupid, continue it. If you really want information to tell your constituents, send the questions in so we can get you the answers. It would be helpful for everybody.
If you want the answer.
And that wasn't my intent.
We
By
talked
any
about this
stretch of
before.
the imagination. I just happened to review it tonight and took a look at it.
Talked about
That's why I asked.
Talked about it before.
Back
It'd
to
be
my
helpful.
question. I have
It's all
one.
well and good.
On
Noted.
the enterprise, would it be possible to get a breakdown of what the leases are on each vehicle by department so we know what? Cause I keep seeing like enterprise, we're making the payments, but just what cost is associated with each vehicle, just so that we're aware of where that expenditure is going, please. In an email later on this week. It doesn't matter when, just something we can have it.
Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
approved.
I make a motion to appoint Paul Pyrie, Mary Willis, and Nikki Myers to a 3-year term on the Pride and Beautification Commission. Terms to begin June 28, 2021, and end December 31st, 2023. I so move.
Second that.
Discussion. Kathy, would you please call the roll?
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
approved.
Our first item of business will be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
Good evening. This is an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a license agreement to operate the Debiski Visitor Center to the Greater Ogdensburg Chamber of Commerce. Be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Ogdensburg, New York as follows. Item 1, an ordinance to authorize a license of municipal property at the Debiski Visitor Center to the Greater Ogdensburg Chamber of Commerce. Item 2, the city manager has presented the attached proposed agreement to license space at the Debiski Visitor Center. Item 3, the city manager is hereby authorized to execute the attached license agreement hereby made part of this ordinance. Item 4, passage of this ordinance shall be by a vote of 3/4 of all members of city council. Item 5, this ordinance shall take effect immediately.
I'll introduce that item. Second.
I'll second it.
So the initial term is through December of 2022, which is a year and a half, and then there's renewal clauses.
That's correct, Counselor. And I think our intent there is the same as we did with the.
Yep, that's fine. I was just clarifying.
Yep.
Mr. Loeffler asked a question.
So the question I have, there's no doubt, I think that the chamber should be in the community center. But what about the rec director? I also think there should be a physical person on hand for the marina tending to that area. Did that office get completely eliminated, or is there a spot there for the rec director?
I mean, we're going to give that entire space to the chamber. And so I think, and we've had a lot of discussion at the staff level about this, we're going to make sure that somebody is down there throughout the season to tend to the boaters. The way it won't be the rec director doing that specifically. We'll have a rotation with summer hire staff to be able to do that. The rec director's office for the moment is being She's in the old city assessor clerk office, and as we look to reorganize, utilize the space better here, but I anticipate that position will stay here in City Hall.
So I just think there needs to be a home base for somebody at the marina. So I want to make sure that happens.
Yep.
So, okay.
Kathy, would you call the roll, please?
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
approved.
Our next item of business will also be read by Director of Planning and Development, Andrea Smith.
A resolution authorizing the city manager to hold a public auction of surplus real property.
These are the properties you discussed earlier.
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Yep. Discussion, anyone?
Yes. Trying to find it here. Surplus property. So the only thing, like we discovered, the old Paul Murray store at 5,000. I don't know if there's interest on that already at that price, but I'd like to see it reduced. I'd like to push that property. And I'd personally like to say we amend that price. Let's drop it to 3,500, same as
Go on, Adam's there.
the one on the end of Adams Ave. Okay, I think both have their advantages and disadvantages, but I think that would be, I don't know what the reasoning was behind the 5,000 or the original price. I think when it went up for auction the first time, I argued that it should be lower, and it was probably this price. But it didn't sell, so I'd like to see it pushed.
What was the price when it was auctioned?
5.
7,500.
The last price that it was listed at was 7,800.
Yeah.
The original one was 10, wasn't it?
The original was 19.5.
19.
Then it was 12.8. Then it was 78.
I'm personally just interested in getting it back in the rules. That'd be fine. And do people outbid each other at the auction? Can they outbid each other? So if there was an interested party, it'd go up to 5 or 6 or 7. I'm fine with what they want to do.
All right.
I agree.
So are you seconding it?
Yes.
All right.
To 3,500. Is that correct?
Kathy, would you call the roll on this amendment?
So this is a call to amend.
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
approved. Mayor,
Now
we need
have
to
do
call, yes,
the
as amended, please.
Would you please call the roll on that?
Counselor Powers,
Yes.
Counselor Reese,
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly,
Yes.
Mayor Skelly,
Yes.
Counselor Dilaba,
Yes.
Counselor Fisher,
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy,
Yes.
approved.
And that brings us to old business, and we will begin with City Manager Stephen Jelly.
Mayor, just to comment on the property there, just for council's knowledge, I think one of the reasons the prices are the way they are is I think we're always trying to make sure that the properties end up in the hands of somebody who's serious about it. I mean, I think we all agree that we want them back in the tax rolls no matter what, but the first effort is trying to make sure that somebody invests a little money and they're serious about it. We're just not going to end up doing the process all over again. So
Rather than just give it away and then you get it again.
and then we got to take it back again or whatever. So I mean, I just think that when there's a structure on it and it appears to be usable, I think we're just making an attempt to try to get someone serious. But this one certainly is one that's been out there a while, and we'd like to just have someone take it and see where it goes if we run the risk. The list is down. This, as Andrew said, our list is down to, this is our last 12 of we've called surplus. Obviously, there are properties that we're working. Everything else is on the active working list, with the exception of the one next to the old St. Joe's, which we'll bring back. So I mean, it's really, I think we've made a lot of progress. Hopefully this will be the last auction. What doesn't go here, we will put in the parallel auction that we're going to do with the county in the fall. If that goes through, is another means to move them on and get rid of it. I don't have anything significant on the grant inputs other than Councilor Reese. I haven't heard from anybody else after last meeting as far as what we're putting in for grants. So Andrew and the staff are hard at work with those. If anybody's got any questions, please at all, come see us or let's sit down and we can go over the list if you want to go over something in more detail. We've got quite a few things on the plan as we briefed last meeting to put in for. Is there any questions tonight on grant stuff anybody thought of?
I think, my sentiments, I wish there had been more grants and more dollars. The process is now yearly. I mean, there are exceptions. And we have 4 or 5 businesses that I've reached out to that have development projects. And I'd really like to see a greater effort in terms of reaching out to those prospective businesses and providing them with assistance. And that's true of our county industrial development agency too. I mean, there's got to be more than just here's the portal on the state's website for you to, this is the link. There really needs to be a concerted effort to assist these people with their projects and, the state assistance that they're all eligible for, potentially eligible for. So that's my sentiments. And I know that you're working hard and you're meeting with them and that's great. That's just my sentiment right now.
Yeah, and we'll keep that up. I think we've had some good feedback. I think we've met with all the parties that you referenced, but we'll keep that up. I'll now ask Angela Gray to give the budget update.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilors. Good evening. Provided ahead of time were the financials through May 31st, 2021. Starting with the general fund, we have recognized approximately, we have remaining 43% of our revenue to collect. As far as revenue year over year, we're running roughly equal. Sales tax is ahead $517,000. That increase was offset by the real property tax cut in revenue. So it became a wash so far year to date.
The real property?
Excuse me?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, your property tax cut,
Okay.
yes.
It was offset by sales.
It has been, yes. Just going down through the different departments, in summary, very high level summary, we have 63% of our budget in the general fund left to expend, which is where we would expect to be at this time of year. Some of the accounts that if you go down line by line, I would anticipate a little explanation for. One is department number 1931, property loss. That, just to bring to your attention, has a current period activity of $32,880. And that represents the write-off of taxes when the Newell building was transferred. So that was that number. Account department 3410, which is your fire protection department. That is the one department that, if we were just to look at a straight line budget, is surpassing where we would anticipate it to be this time of year. And that's related to retirements. So that's the main driver right there. And account 5182, street lighting, we're still working through the solar credits. In prior years, you had a significant more amount of solar credits than what we're seeing coming through there. And I've been working with National Grid and the contact there who put us in touch with someone from the solar company. So we're still working through that situation. But overall, the general fund, like I said, is where we would expect it to be year to date. Turning the page, looking at the water fund, we have revenue year to date of 1.1 million roughly, slightly higher than the year prior. So there's nothing significant to report there. The remaining budget is what we would expect for this time of year, as well as on the expenditure side. So there's not, there are not any anomalies in that account. The sewer fund, the revenue this year to date is $1,350,000. This same period last year, the revenue was $1,380,000. Of course, these are all rounded. The large difference in that revenue line relates to the billing to the psych center. So the St. Lawrence Psychiatric Center was significantly higher in 2020 than it's coming in at 2021. So those,
what is our annual revenue from the solar credits? Are they credits or are they cash or are they?
They're credit to offset the bill. So if you have a $50 credit and your bill is 75, you're going to write a check for 25.
And what's our annual revenue for solar credits?
Without looking back, I wouldn't be able to recall. But I can.
Relatively insignificant, or you would have?
No, I wouldn't say that at all.
Oh, okay.
No, I would not say. What had happened in prior years, you had a significant amount of credits that weren't transferred from one parcel to several. So I don't know when those started without looking, Councilor Reish, but I can certainly provide some more insight on that.
That's the first time she didn't have an answer.
I would, right? Any questions on the financial statements? Just a couple of the things that we have going on. We're finishing up the financial statement audit for the year ended December 31st, 2020. I've been working with your audit company and the comptroller staff on that. So everything is going well. Should be completed relatively soon. We're also in the process of doing a mid-year budget review. So just starting on that process. In the next meeting, we'll have a lot more concrete numbers, and we'll be looking for some budget amendments as well. Just to give you a heads up on that. I would also like to just take a couple minutes and shed some light on the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. This is the stimulus money that all the municipalities are looking for. This law is 3.5 months old, not very old, especially by federal government standards. So the NEUs, which are non-entitlement units, cities, municipalities less than 50,000, we're entitled to about $19.53 billion, all sent throughout the whole country. The way the city will receive this money is to make a request from the state of New York. So if you're in what we term an NEU, you go to your state and you make that request. The request just to raise your hand and say, yes, I want to participate, or no, I don't want to participate, are due July 9th. So we'll be presumably submitting that for our money. There's about 5 general categories that this money can be spent on. The first one is to support public health expenditures. This is the one I would just like to point out that payroll and related benefits does fit in. However, the caveat in the code is that payroll and related benefits count to the extent that the employee's time is dedicated to responding to COVID-19 public health emergencies. So it's not just for general payroll purposes. It does have to relate specifically to the response and mitigation of COVID-19. This came out with the interim final rule when the law was passed last Thursday, the 24th of June. The federal government published an FAQ that kind of went through and gave a little bit more detail on their guidance. There is an opportunity there to address negative economic impacts in your community, to provide assistance to workers, families, households, small businesses, not-for-profits. There's a specific provision to support the recovery of tourism, travel, and hospitality sectors. So this is about a 30,000-foot view of all of this. There's a piece that we're currently working on, which is to replace the public sector revenue that was deemed lost due to COVID-19. And the federal government has come out with very specific guidelines of what revenue we can include, what revenue we can't include, and a very specific formula on how to calculate that. Provide premium pay to essential workers that did work in providing essential services, but again, directly related to COVID-19. And there's also the opportunity to use this money for water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure. The program runs from right now through December 31st, 2024. So it isn't a 1-year spend down of money. We have until December 31st, 2024 to spend that. When the federal government tasked New York State to disperse this money, New York State asked for an extension. So they're just opening their portal right now. And we would expect to receive a portion of the city's money in late July, early August. And so that's an estimate. We are at the mercy of the state, who is getting pressure from the Treasury. So they do want this money out into the communities. Just this week, last week, somewhere in that area, the Office of State Comptroller sent a memo out to all fiscal officers of local governments just to discourage and the use of this money on recurring expenditures within your municipality. So this is what we consider a non-recurring revenue stream. It's a one-time thing. And in a note to fiscal officers, the use for recurring expenditures was discouraged. So as a takeaway from all this, I mean, there are specific guidelines that we have to adhere to in order to have this money. It is federal money, even though it comes through New York State, it's considered federal funds. And the guidelines are being developed as municipalities are writing in and asking specific questions. But there was a great FAQ that came out just Thursday, the 24th. So.
One question.
Yes.
Are we going to use the same audit company, independent audit company that we've used in previous years when we sit down with the audit committee?
Yes, so it will be PMHV,
Yeah.
Pinto Missions,
Okay, that's
Cooper Van House. That's who was.
And we're going to try to do that sooner this year, because last year we were.
Yeah, we should be ready for committee. I don't want to overcommit them, but we've made great progress on this. I think that we should be ready for committee, Councilor Kennedy, within, don't hold me to it, but a week or two, because I'm committing them to this schedule, right? So,
Yes,
but it's happening very quickly. We were, what, November, December last year going over the audit.
We were barely getting one done, and then we were passing another budget.
Right.
Time, which was hectic.
And at budget time, I feel like we were working in 3 fiscal years. So this year, we put together a full audit package for them with all the work papers that they needed, and it's gone very fast comparatively. So we'll be ready to meet in committee on that very shortly.
Great, thank you.
When you touched on the solar lighting.
Yes.
Are you saying that we haven't been getting the proper credits that we were told when we were sold this bill of goods, so to speak?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that when we look year over year, there seems to be a decline. But I don't know if it's buried by an anomaly that we had a ton of pent up credits that had never been applied that got applied in the 2020 year. So I've been working to provide you, I know this has been a line that's been out of kind of balance, if you will, for the last 5 months, to try to find the right players to give us that information.
Okay. Can you keep us updated on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what is our, so.
All these credits, and then they were gone, and then all of a sudden I got hundreds of bills from National Grid, revising them all, and like now it seems like they're gone. And it's, you know, and then your hours and hours with National Grid on the phone trying to find it. I'm in the same situation.
So what's the process moving forward with the roughly $1.4 million for the American Rescue Plan? I mean, what's the process? I mean, is council going to express to you what we'd like to see it used on? Are you going to give us a recommendation? Certainly we want to hold a public hearing. You can do that based on what's being recommended or before that.
Yeah, I think you can do all the above. I think we plan for a pretty extensive mid-year budget review, excuse me, in July to go over where we are mid-year. So I think it'll be appropriate then as we see where we are with, you know, with the budget where we're running now, where we think there might be issues. So you can look at the full range of where you'd like to apply it, offset with what, you know, as Angela continues to refine the guidance of what specifically we can use it for. From my view, it's a pretty tight use. Infrastructure expenses related to COVID, things that you can do to help bolster individuals and businesses that have been damaged by COVID. It's as Angela said, they're really frowning upon and discouraging the use for, hey, you've got a funding gap here this year, so throw the money in there. So I think during the budget review, that'll be a large part of their presentation will be our recommendations for a portion of that. Again, it's money that we can also hang on to for a couple of years. We don't have to spend it all this year. We're not in a, you know, use or lose situation. It is also, you know, it's $1.1 million. I think we all know we've got lots of holes and lots of places. There won't be any shortage of it. So I think what we'll do is we'll line up as part of the budget review those things that are most obvious that the money would qualify for, that some of it ought to go towards, and then go from there. See how you feel about that. Again, whether we hold a public hearing, et cetera, is certainly council's prerogative for the money.
So do we have to do this before July 9th?
No, we're just, Again, unless you tell me tonight you don't want the money, we don't need a resolution or anything. We will just affirm to them the next day or two that yes, we want the money, participate in the program, and then again, it's part of a waiting mode until we see it probably sometime late summer, early fall before the first deposit of the money comes. So again, it's not, again, we're not going to get 1.1 for it at any one given time. And I wouldn't, you know, again, we're farther down the road than with the initial guidance. When we got this, said we were going to get it. They also said we weren't going to, it wasn't going to pass through the state, but we ended up being in a category where it does have to pass through the state. So it's an evolving program, you know, like the rest of these. It's trial and error goes. So I think in July we'll just be part of the budget brief for mid-year. That way you'll have a good picture of any needs that may need to be funded this year. You know, we'll put up the projects that have been, you know, significant on people's minds that we want to do. One of the areas, for instance, I'd hope to be able to make a recommendation was perhaps we could use some of the money when we get the estimates back on the shade roller cleanup, or when we get the estimates back on the 212 Ford Street demolition. But it doesn't appear the funds, sorry, Steve, it doesn't appear the funds qualify, you know, in those, you know, for those projects. So we're looking at some other things now to put it towards. I think one of the interesting uses that we are doing in the research on to bring you is, and I think where it's most appropriate, let's say this is relief money. You know, how do we get it in the hands of small businesses, and how do we get it in the hands of homeowners to do the things that they need to do, offset the gaps that they had? You know, I don't want to say it's just $1 million, but in the grand scheme of things, like a $32 million sewer project, it is just $1 million. And we won't get an opportunity with $1 million to structure a program perhaps that we can put some, without a lot of strings attached, money in small business owners' hands, or some hands of residents who need that money to get their property fixed up, to do things that are critical before winter, et cetera. So I think there's a real opportunity there with this money to be able to go, you know, direct support to members of the community, and not necessarily use it to offset a shortfall in a program. Again, just ideas. So I think I'll send you just food for thought over the next, you know, week or so before this next briefing. Here's what we're seeing, and here's some ideas that we've got. And certainly if you can throw back ideas you've got so we can run them through and say, yes, it's something that it looks like it qualifies for, or no, it doesn't. So we can really refine that presentation for July. So you're looking at a good list of things as we communicate to the public.
Thanks. I guess we're on the sales tax. Thank you.
So Council, I'd like to just ask, first of all, just to clarify for some of the comments we heard tonight. Starting this time last year, we started working on sales tax preemption and covering the rules of engagement and what that would look like. I provided all of you briefs as we moved along over the course of the last several months. Most recently, just a week ago, I sent you the update on where we are with sales tax, including all the topics that were addressed by one of our citizens tonight. If council's okay with it, I'm going to break down all those briefs into a one-page summary, and I'll post that on the city website so people have access to it. Most of Mr. Tooley's questions are well answered in the information I provided you all last week. For the public's knowledge, we've involved everybody from the city attorney to our new city comptroller, myself, and quite frankly, anybody else that we could talk to, including other city mayors, managers, and comptrollers that have found themselves in this situation. We started up a conversation with the State Department of Tax and Finance early on. Our point of contact has been the Deputy Commissioner of Tax and Finance. So I believe we've gotten all the information that was available to us. There was one piece of information, without a doubt, that was not shared with us through the numerous phone calls that we had. And that was the information about when sales tax collection could begin. So we are working with the county on a transition plan overall as we transition from a shared tax, sales tax situation to a system where we are collecting our own. I do expect the County Board of Legislators is going to act on that this evening. So I'll have additional information and I'll add it to that summary. Excuse me. Other than that, I don't have any other information, Mayor, than what I presented to council last week in the summary. I think everybody full knows where we are. To further, we have put together what I think is an action plan for staff to provide the resources and the information to members of council to communicate with the other elected officials. There is absolutely no doubt the only way we are going to get the additional authorization to collect city sales tax in the city is to work with the elected officials, the senator's office, the assemblyman's office. The Speaker's office, perhaps, and the committee chairs, we were advised by the Senator's office and by the Assemblyman's office early on that this was largely a piece of administrative home rule legislation, and we did not treat it like any other piece of legislation that we were trying to get enacted through the state legislature. In hindsight, it certainly appears to be a mistake. So we'll do that now going forward. Perhaps if a special session of the legislature is convened before the end of the year, we'll have another opportunity to get the committee chair to move this bill forward. But I do believe this is straight away a political issue now, and we will have to bring all the political forces to bear to get the attention on this issue, especially out of cycle. And that is something that City Council will have to dedicate themselves to, and working with the other elected officials to get that issue off the table. Pending your questions on it, I don't have anything else.
I just like to point out that I spent an awful lot of time on it myself, and I actually emailed the speaker as well as another assemblyman in the North Country, as well as a representative of the governor's office, as well as talking to the county chairman, as well as talking to all the board members, or at least calling all the board members in my party to basically plead with them that, you know, we don't want to go through reductions, and that is a terrible loss of revenue, and you don't realize the impact. I talked with one of them that called back, a gentleman from Canton, and he was open and receptive. I don't know what they're doing tonight, but it's been a team effort, and it's just really unfortunate that, you know, something as straightforward as a home rule bill in the state legislature didn't get adopted. And you know, I'm hoping we can regroup, and that still is a possibility. You know, I don't know, there's going to be another session or anything, but certainly early next year. And yeah, but I think that in large part depends on the county coming around to show its support for it, which I think we're lacking because, well, I don't know why, but anyways, enough said.
Now we're on the property tax.
So on the 1%, the extra 1%. Now, when we passed that, the county wanted us to pass a resolution supporting their collection of the 1%. And I know I keep asking this, and I've asked it before. How come they can continue to collect the 1% and we can't collect a piece of that 1%?
They have the authorization to build it. That.
But wasn't it a part of our resolution of the understanding that the city of Ogdensburg is going to continue to collect a piece of that 1%?
Well, we needed the legislation passed to authorize.
Needed the home rule.
Yeah, we had the authorization on the 3 cents from 20, 30 years ago, but the county had it on the 1 cent, which this council supported.
Because of us, right?
Yeah,
we had
that's right.
support.
That's right.
So that's what I'm asking is, if we had to support that in order for them to collect it.
Because they have a bill that gave them the authorization for another 2 or 3 years. So
that they're supposed to share it with us.
No, our agreement expired. That's what the problem is.
Yeah.
And they chose not to renew it and swipe $1 million to $1.5 million from us.
Mayor, if I could just take another minute too. This has been a topic that I'm glad to hear council engagement tonight, and I'm glad to hear some community engagement. It's been a topic that has been working significantly since this time last year. All I can say ultimately was, you know, when the final chapter is written on this, I don't know what else Ogdensburg could have done. For instance, there was never a negotiation. That's the truth. There was never a negotiation starting before this current council took over. This issue started with the previous council. They weren't negotiating with them. They never negotiate with this council. The county's offer that we made, what was made to us, using 2020 tax collection numbers, would have netted us about $1.9 million. We collected $4 million with our tax sharing agreement. But more relevant, and to Mr. Tooley's comment tonight about the way the decision was made, I'll just identify there was no decision to be made because in 1999, 2000, the last year that we preempted, the last year that we collected sales tax, we collected $1.8 million. There was never a decision to accept $1.9 million or not. There was never any decision to be made. we were going on our own from the get-go, with that being the best presentation. The only questions and the only difficulty, and has never been hard and fast, cut and dry with everybody that we've talked to. It all depends, Councilor Scamplin, on how these agreements are written, how the legislation is crafted. So to ultimately answer your question now, our tax sharing agreement included the last penny. That has expired. They have no obligation. It's their authority. They can do what they want with it. They may in fact offer us a share of that last 1 cent in the same proportion that they're offering the rest of the towns and villages. It would seem like that's the right thing to do, but I don't know that for certain. But there is no
at minimal.
But there is no requirement for them to do so. So I think tonight, while I think everyone heard loud and clear about the messaging on 10 police officers and targeting any one group, it's not about a group at this point. It really is now about trying to drive home what the impacts of $2 million look like. The fire department budget is $2.7 or $2.8 million, and we lose $2 million. The police department is $3.7 to $3.9 million, and we lose $2 million. Those are significant impacts. So I think that is what we're trying to articulate now, more so for the benefit of the state legislators that seemed unsure how to act upon this, so that those facts and things are known. The county well knows this. There isn't anything the county doesn't know here. We had these discussions in each and every meeting, what the implications would be. The scariest part of all for this, I'll just reiterate for what the mayor said earlier, is that there isn't even a problem with this money. In 1999-2000, the last year we preempted, the county collected on whole $27 million. Last year, the county collected $60 million. There is a lot of money in this very growing pot of money. Why anybody ever thought picking this fight between our two entities was a good idea doesn't seem to pass any level of logic at all, none whatsoever. So I'll be happy to talk to anybody. If someone wants to come in and talk about this, I'll publish the information. It's been a long saga, if you will, but the story is really rather short because there wasn't a lot of things that went on in between. There was lots of newspaper headlines. The discussion tonight about negotiating with the county through the media, those are the things that the media prints. There was lots and lots, hours and hours of in-person negotiation, back channel negotiation, people working on our behalf, negotiating. We had lots of those things going on. So I think it's important we get all this out there. I think we've done all we could do. I don't know how we could do it different. To quote Mr. Lawford tonight, when something doesn't work, try again. I think we ran down at least 8 different plans with this. Some that were incepted by us, some that were incepted by others, some members of this community who brought us ideas, some members of this community who volunteered to work back channels to do this. I don't know what other options we could have used. There was a majority of members of the county legislature that were determined to change this formula and take really a couple $1 million from a city that needs it more than ever now and add it to their $40 million surplus. That is the story. You can look all day long. Those are the facts. I wish there was something else to point at. I wish there was something else we could poke at, but it isn't there. And then when the time came, after really leaving us no choice but to preempt, when the time came to support our additional tax money, we didn't get that either. So I don't know, again, what else we could do to negotiate. I believe the level of community involvement needs to be raised significantly on this. We have one full-time legislator, Jim Reagan, that covers this area, one other legislator that covers a small piece of the legislature, Dave Forsyth, both who have worked really relentlessly on this issue, as has Rita Curran from the Messina area, worked on behalf of Ogdensburg just because she looked at this issue and said it's not making any sense what's going on. So, and 3 or 4 others that I'm not mentioning. We came down on an 8-7 vote almost every time. So, tonight we've asked the legislator to approve a transition plan. Once again, either give us a 1-year extension to get this done properly or smoothly, or at least give us the 3-month extension to not lose those 3 months of tax, and then provide us with our fair share of whatever the formula is they're going to use for the additional 1%. So that is the update of where we are. It's kind of a quick summary of where we've been, but I wish there were more to the story.
And when their home rule bill comes up in 2 years, obviously they'll be looking for a resolution from this council, and we'll see how we feel at that time.
Yes, sir.
Property tax.
So I have nothing new to report on the property collection foreclosure. The county reported nothing significant to report. They asked the board to take some action. I did not hear after the last meeting. I heard they had taken no action. Again, perhaps tonight it will be addressed at their meeting.
City Beach update.
Yes, sir. So we're inching closer with the beach. We don't have bad news, but I don't have entirely affirmative news to tell you that we've got everything in place to open for this weekend. Health department had a delay in coming on site last week with a personnel issue they had internally. So we hope to have their site walkthrough done this week. We've put everything in motion that we possibly can. Right now, our total expenditures towards the beach, money that we have spent and money that we projected to spend, has us right around $18,000 to open the beach, including man hours that we're factoring in. We will assume a few additional costs once we get authorization for the beach to be up and running. Got a couple more tests that we have not gotten the written results back yet for them to plug into the formula, but thus far our water sample tests appear now that we'll pass that part of the permit requirement. So our engineering plans are just, again, waiting for the final coordination with the state for the last things that we need. We've cleared the area, walked the terrain. The surveyor has been on site to do the work he needed to do. So we're getting closer, and I'll keep you posted over the next couple of days. We're hoping perhaps we can still get it all done for the weekend, but it's just now a matter of getting everything through the regulatory agencies to be able to get that authorization.
They're aware of that.
What's that?
Our interest in opening it
Oh,
this
absolutely.
weekend, and
Absolutely.
we may get the approvals later this week. That's what we're shooting for.
Absolutely.
And if we do, we're ready to go.
We'll be ready to go.
Okay.
Our plan now will be to have a split schedule based on the overall number of people we get. We'll let the pool open, say 3 days a week, and the beach open 3 days, or depending on significant, if there's important weekends, we want to go an extra day at the beach and less at the pool, or vice versa, we'll do that. But that's ultimately what we'll be doing. The staff that we'll have won't allow us to have both open simultaneously and run 7 days a week. Both facilities look like they'll be closed on Mondays. Nothing will be open, just similar to I think what we've done in past years. But we are feeling in the lifeguard area, we were pretty fortunate to fill the rest of our summer help staff around the city, but the lifeguard staff is the one that we've come up a few short. So I'm still hoping we may pick some folks up. We made a good contact in Waddington, thanks to whoever passed that on to us, and maybe we'll get an additional 1 or 2 there. But again, the state has been very cooperative. I don't want to paint a picture they haven't. It's a process, getting all the samples, getting everything run through the analysis, the engineering, but they've worked with us every step of the way on this timeline that we've been on. So I'll keep you updated day by day.
So as far as ADA accessibility, it will be accessible to all. I know you said in the last meeting that you were working on accommodations, but have we moved forward from there?
Yeah,
Like, is there a plan?
What we'll do once we're for certain with an opening date, what we'll do is advertise people with disabilities. There'll be a number to contact so that we can take those requests in and see what we can accommodate to help get folks there. So that's what we'll do this year. Part of the grant proceeding you saw that Andrea submitted was to be able to get a grant to be able to study how to properly engineer a solution if we continue this to be able to provide easier access.
Anyone else? No one else has old business? So this brings us to new business. This is received.
So giving you a packet tonight, just wanted to get some discussion going on the legalization of marijuana. We'll have a deadline on us. What's the date? What's our last date to opt out? So between now and the end of December, we have to make a decision if we want to opt out. We don't have any significant decision to make to opt in. We don't have to necessarily opt in, but we have to make a decision to opt out. So I wanted to provide you this summary of information. Again, still a topic that's a moving target, lots going on with it, but I just thought it'd be good to start the discussion. If there's any significant thoughts either way from council, one way or the other, you want to talk about that tonight, great. If not, digest the information and we'll be back again. There's nothing we have to do today, but we should be thinking about it. There's been a map provided, which kind of speaks to the exclusionary zones, very similar to the exclusion zones that are put out for the sale of alcohol. And the rules are similarly paralleling that right now. One of the things I envision us doing is if city council doesn't prohibit this from use in the city, all applicants for this will go through a by permit process. There'll be no cut method in our code. It'll be a use by permit. That way allows the planning board to look at that and make sure that we have things set up the way we want it. So
We just have to go to a permissive referendum at the end. Even if we supported it, would we have to put it out to a referendum?
And your referendum.
So if you, one second. If you, any law adopted by the city that is subject to permissive referendum will not take place until 45 days after the adoption has passed. And 2, it is approved by the electors of the city if a petition is filed requiring the law be approved by a majority vote of the electorate. If you choose to opt out, the community has the opportunity to file a petition. And if that petition is filed, then that can trigger a permissive referendum in order to opt in. If you opt in, there is no permissive referendum. And the default is to opt in.
The default, yeah, right.
So if the city takes no action because it can't come to a consensus or we forget about it or for any number of reasons, you will automatically opt in. There's a formal resolution that the municipality has to actually pass if you choose not to do this, if you want to opt out. So if you, in my conversations with the city manager, and the reason I asked for this to be included tonight is if there's a thought that you may want to opt out, I would encourage the council to have that discussion sooner rather than later so that staff can provide you with the information, including the resolution and local law template that New York State has provided so that you can do that appropriately and give the community the time to determine whether or not they do want to opt in. We do have some time on this, but this is a law that the state has adopted, and now municipalities are sort of being called to follow suit. So I will say, since we've been talking a lot about sales tax, there's some pretty lucrative opportunities for sales tax for the city.
So that was my question. When I'm looking here at the local revenues from cannabis sales, tax law 493 imposes a 4% local tax on the retail sale of adult use cannabis. Is that in addition to sales tax, or that just means
that's an additional sales tax?
It's an additional sales tax. And so then it goes on to say, the counties are entitled to retain 25%. But if you look at New York State, there's not many cities collecting their own tax. It's all counties. So does that mean that Ogdensburg would retain that 25%? And then it goes on to say that the counties must distribute the remaining 75% to the cities, villages, and towns in proportion of where it was sold. So maybe this is a question for Angela to look into, or maybe we have the answer. I don't know.
There's a 4% tax. 3% of that tax will be retained by the city. 1% will go to the county.
Really?
There's no way to estimate.
No.
What that would be? No. I mean, I'm not going to estimate it.
But 75% in essence of that 4% can come to the city. So again, it certainly incentivizes us not to exclude ourselves.
So at the Revs, they're already doing this.
Sort of.
For years.
They collect all the money, right? I mean, they don't have to do the sales tax and things like that.
Right.
But yeah, they're already, I mean, it's quite lucrative up there from my understanding. Well, I don't, everybody's got a smart gun. I don't know, but I'm just saying it's.
Well,
if
they have
we're-
to, they have a different set of regulations
Yeah.
that they comply with. So,
Right.
that's not, we don't get to play in that sports arena.
Right.
What
So
makes
if
it
there's an
easier now
8% sales tax
Yeah, go ahead.
and an additional 4%, that means it would be taxed 12% in the city
Right. And so we would get theoretically now 1.5%
of the sales tax.
of the 3.
Yep.
The first 4% goes to the state. We get 1.5% of the 3. County keeps the whole 8%. We would get 75% of the last 4.
Paul Murray's store would be a nice distribution center. Just to wrap up our meeting here, right? But
Just to bring it full circle.
Parking won't even be an issue.
parking won't be an issue. We can have a drive-through. Nope, can't do that on the city council. It's one thing we can't do is buy the property we're selling.
Will
So
there be amendments to the zoning code?
We would definitely need to make, I mean, I would recommend that you would make changes to the zoning code. Otherwise, the planning board, your planning department would have no other choice to look at it as simply retail. There's nothing else that's the way our current code reads. So anywhere you have retail, it would
So
be
are they
permitted.
simple amendments, like permitted uses that says, alcohol, a bar basically, and just gonna be a dispensary.
cannabis dispensary, yeah.
Right. So are they just like line item changes?
It can be, yeah. I mean, it depends on how council wants to regulate it. I think in line with what the city manager was mentioning would probably fall more in line with what our code refers to as a special use permit. And so you would add a special use permit to any district that didn't have one where you wanted those sales to be allowed. And that would require an automatic review by the planning board. Special use permits require review. So if that is a recommendation you were following. But I would recommend looking at that more closely, as this is going to come to fruition pretty quickly.
And according to this, we can put all sorts of regulations on it.
Time, use, and manner.
Right.
So I think either way, that's why, again, if we can think about this a little bit and then perhaps by August, we can get council's wishes again. Work if we're going to opt out, but less work on the staff, obviously. Not a lot of work reporting if we're going to necessarily have to opt in. We're just going to do it, but then to get to work on what the code change recommendations would be. So.
Anyone else?
So I just wanted to make a note, the map that you all have been provided with. So this will follow New York State education law, which is a little strange, I think. But the areas, what this map is showing you are areas where you wouldn't be allowed to have dispensaries, retail sales under New York State education law. So regardless of anything you do here locally, these areas are areas where you wouldn't be able to have them because of their proximity to schools and or places of worship. So
Paul Murray's is available.
I didn't confirm that. For what it's worth, I did not confirm.
Entrepreneurial spirit is alive and well.
That shows up, this is all based on New York State real property class codes. So in accordance with what the property has a current property class code for, and if it shows up as a 600, that's a place of worship. I didn't go cross-check each one of these sites in person, but it wouldn't matter because if the property class code still reflects education or religious use, that's what it's going to have to go by.
And this brings us to items for discussion, and we will begin with City Manager Stephen Zeller.
So councilors, what you've got in front of you is a chart on PowerPoint. These will be provided to all of you, excuse me, by the end of the week for each of the departments. This is the format we'll use for our department updates. Attached to each one of these will be a short summary explanation of anything significant in each of these lines. Also, this will give you the full rundown from each department. We'll post these after we send them to you. We'll post these out for the public, so questions can be asked about what's going on in each of the departments. And I think this will bring to closure the ability for the public and for you all to know at any given moment what the personnel issues, strength is, priorities of the department, projects that are ongoing, and problems that are being experienced in those departments. I also just want to state to council something I sent all of you. I write down all the questions that are asked. I've been writing them down for a couple months. I've been providing responses to city council. This is a meeting of the Augsburg City Council, not the city manager. So I don't feel it's my responsibility unless asked by you all to respond to these questions, but I am providing responses to all the questions that are being asked at the podium. I'm providing the answers back to you so you can provide those responses to your constituents. If there's something that I send you that is not being sent to you in enough detail to respond to whichever one of your constituents was here, I certainly just need to know what else you'd like to be able to reply to those. It's not our intention ever to not answer questions. I just, in a 1.5 to 2 hour meeting format, it's difficult to answer all the questions that are being asked and do the research that's done, but no questions are being ignored. And I just want to continue to let council know I'm giving you the responses. So if nobody is sending those forward to the constituents, that's your responsibility, or I need the majority of you to tell me that's what you'd like to occur. So, but those things are being captured.
So this one here on the fire department.
Yep.
Is there going to be more of an explanation?
So there'll be one additional page, Counselor, for this one. It'll basically tell you, again, in the summary of each of the priorities, the projects, or the problems. There'll be an explanation, so you'll have that. This will give you the snapshot of what it is, and then there'll be a summary Word document attached that'll tell you. Actually, it'll be on the back page of this for your purpose of handouts. I'm going to try to keep it simple.
So when this says conversion of old dispatch room, is that the dispatch room up front in the fire department?
That's correct.
Are we putting in a new dispatch room?
We don't have dispatch in the fire department. We don't dispatch in the fire department. We're going to pull all the old communication desks and comm equipment, junction breaker boxes are in there, and make room for a captain's office there.
And what is the plan or strategy for recruiting and hiring a fire chief?
As you're all aware, the test was offered this year. Nobody applied or took the test.
Is it a 1-year opportunity?
Excuse me?
Is it a one-time opportunity for the year? Are there other tests?
No, we've made the request for the test again. Yeah, we only get one opportunity, but we've made the request again. They'll schedule the test again. We'll advertise. We'll look to hire somebody provisionally when we know there's a test on the horizon to be able to do that. So the civil service exams have been opening up. Schedule's becoming a little more regular, so I hope to hear on that and a couple other opportunities that we've got moving forward when the tests will be offered, so we can advertise provisionally. It hasn't seemed like beneficial work right now to try to hire somebody, particular external, for the position provisionally without knowing when the test was going to give them, so they would have an idea when they would have an opportunity for a permanent opportunity at the job.
So I want to talk about this dispatch room for a minute. So the county is running all of our dispatch.
Fire
for the fire.
Correct.
So if we don't have a dispatch room at all, how do they even know where they're getting the call from?
Who?
How are they? Do they have a radio?
Yes.
And the county just contacts the radio?
It's a system of tones that go out. We've got pagers, portable radios. There's a fixed radio in the station hooked to a PA system, and they hear the call. Happy to give you a tour. See it sometime.
All right.
Yep.
I'll definitely take you up on that.
Yep.
Anyone else have any items of discussion?
Oh, I do. I noticed driving around the city, primarily over my neck of the woods, because that's the only place I go. There's a lot of trees that are like kind of obstructing views at stop signs. So it's making it hard to see when you're pulling out into intersections. And I've noticed a lot of trees that have overgrown and they're hanging down really low, and we're seeing you know, even like box trucks, they're coming through and like, there's a tree in front of my house, just for example, that every day they're taking branches and they're leaving debris all over the roads. And I was just wondering if there's a plan, like should we put it out there that if anybody has any, you know, that are known, should we submit them to Shane and then DPW can take care of them? Is that the best way to go about that if we know known issues or?
It is, and we fielded a number of calls already. Shane and I talk every other day on somebody calling the stop sign block, the trees hanging down here, the foliage is there now, the tree branches have come down. So we've gotten a lot of calls. I think he's already got a pretty extensive list, but it's always good when somebody sees it to say something, send it to DPW, call City Hall, Kathy, I'll add to the list. But Shane's been hard at work at it. We've got quite a few in this
I
situation.
just noticed like a lot,
Yeah.
just a lot of obstructions, especially in like some of the school zones that, you know, it's already a congested area. Then you're like inching and inching and inching just to try to see if there's any traffic.
Warm weather, a lot of growth.
Yep.
Not a lot of rain. The weeds are growing faster. So lots of different things going on.
It's mostly just obstructions from trees that just.
Yep.
I don't want that. I was getting bombarded with bicycles with where people have attached motors and they're just like louder than hell. Like just zipping. Some are going, I mean, they got to be going 30, 35, 40. I mean, right through, I mean, just constant. It's and in the middle of the night, especially, people are calling saying, you know, I'm getting woke up. Crescent Street's one of the major ones. Those people call all the time. It's just, I mean, I don't think there's anybody sitting in here that hasn't seen one go by or heard it. I mean, I can't be the only one hearing the complaints.
Oh no, I've got a couple.
I mean,
that like
I think, and this has been going on now since it got warmer, or actually the weather broke to be on a bike. And I mean, there's no helmets, there's no nothing. I don't know what constitutes today for a limited use vehicle or what ends up being still termed as a motor vehicle if it's not horse driven or, you know, I don't know what the updates have been, but I know it's crazy.
All the same regulations as mopeds, as far as if they go 30 miles an hour plus, which most of them do, 25 miles an hour. They follow the same regulation as mopeds. Like anything else, you know, they're buzzing around. We're answering calls. We address them when we see them, try to stop them when we can.
No, but I mean, if it's a bicycle that somebody attached a motor and it's got.
They follow the same rules. It's unregistered motorcycle. It's unregistered.
Because it has no
uninsured,
nothing.
No signals, no helmet. It's all the same tickets that you'd get on a motorcycle.
Well,
it's just a matter of.
The Crescent Street, any about 4 o'clock in the morning or pretty much anywhere around Lafayette.
Well, we've stopped a lot of them. For some reason, a lot of them think they're legal. They're not. But again, you know, we stop them when we can. We work on it, but like anything else, it's tickets. They go on their way, and a lot of them are out the next day with them. It's
maybe something could
definitely
be posted in the New Journal and some of the other papers to say exactly what the regulations and rules are, so they know what they're, how they're to act.
Sure.
You know, because it's people work. They're not getting that. You know, they're not sleeping.
Oh, I live in the city. I hear them too, so I'm aware of it.
Thank you. Good. And this brings us to citizen participation. Speak.
Once again, I'd just like to address some things I've heard this evening. I heard Steve asked the question why he thinks, or he doesn't know why the county picked a fight or however that went. Let me tell you, people, it works just simply. You've lost people's trust. You've done things behind the scenes. You have meetings after the meeting at people's houses. You know, you tell us one thing, you do another. You've lost people's trust. You don't allow access to the lawyer, to 3 counselors. I mean, you make comments without thinking. Even tonight, Councilor Reese had to say that's not the way the whole council thinks. We don't know what you're going to do next. The county doesn't know. You've lost people's trust. That's the number one thing I would say. Another thing is the way you allow the meetings to be conducted. Now, Jerry Mack mentioned that maybe some charter changes took place that he's unaware of. I'm unaware of them too. One of which is that the city manager serves at the privilege of council, not majority council. So when a councilor asks a question, especially about how our money's being spent, he should have an answer. If he doesn't have an answer, maybe he should have treated the people in the controller's office a little better. He'd have an answer. But more importantly, an outburst like that towards a superior member is insubordination. And if you don't have the answer, it's incompetence. And both those things are grounds for termination.
Anyone else want to speak?
Just a couple of things on the sales tax issue. As I mentioned, maybe you had to go to Plan B. Well, and manager said that everything has been exhausted. As Councilor Reese well knows, the Bridge and Port Authority built that airport in a 3-year time limit instead of 10. And the way they did it is every other week they were in Albany and they were in Washington pounding on the doors. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should go to Albany. Maybe we should go there every other week. Okay? Pound on them people's doors. And I'm going to tell you something. We sat there, and that gentleman sat right there at a meeting one night when the engineer said, the reason you got that airport built so quick is you didn't email them, you didn't make calls, you pounded on the doors, and they knew who they were talking to. So maybe that's an avenue you guys ought to take. We got the Tahoe. 3 of you can get in there. Okay? And I mean, there's nothing wrong with using that. No, I'm not being smart. It's a city vehicle. You can use it on city business. Okay? The other thing, city manager mentioned the COVID money to help businesses. Just an idea. Okay? Maybe you can't do it. Maybe it's worth investigating. All our small businesses in this community were hurt. Okay? So maybe you take $50,000, $75,000, or $100,000. And when Doug Loeffler goes to Hosmer's and buys a $25 gift certificate, maybe that fund out of the city gives Hosmer's another $25 gift certificate. Just something to think about, okay? Just something, do you want to help small businesses? They need the revenue, all right? That can happen any place, any business in this community, all right? And I was glad to hear Councilor Scamperly bring up the rec thing, Recreation Director's office at the community center. Ed Dubinsky, as you all know, was a well-known business person here in this community. He was a staunch Recreation Commission member and chairman. And I'm going to tell you something. I think you're doing a disservice to your recreation person by not having her in an office down there. Okay, it's not a 35-hour-a-week job, as you all know. All right, and I'm going to tell you something. She's going to get more responsibilities put on her. I think it's already happening. All right, and if she's going to have to control the marina and control the lifeguards and stuff, okay, at that pool along with Penny. All right, she needs to be there. She needs to be where the action is. That's her responsibility. Because I can tell you one thing: if something happens down there, okay, it's not going to be a summer worker. It's going to be her that's going to take the heat for it. So I know if I was there, I'd want to be there. If I'm going to be take that responsibility, I'm going to be there. And my last comment is, I guess when the Chamber of Commerce moves in, what happens to all the summer help that's working down there now? Are they going to just be dismissed or put someplace else? Just okay. So maybe somebody could give me that answer. And that's it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just a couple quick ones. For the accounts payable claims, how hard is it to write a description down for the service provided or material supplied next to the vendor name with the dollar amount? That would save a lot of confusion up here. It might make you remember exactly why we're paying that bill. Just a simple thought. I don't know if it's that hard to put that in there, but I don't believe it is. Next, Mayor Skelly, you can email me with an answer because I've been dying to know, how do we force the county to take services over for us? You're saying we're going to throw it on their lap. How do we force them to do that? You don't need to answer me now. You might want to think about it and get back to me because I desperately want to know. Then lastly, as Mr. Tooley commented, where does the buck stop for failing to request the home rule with regards to the sales tax? Mayor Skelly, you said you don't know anything. You're not here to run the day-to-day operations of the city. This is not a strong form of government. We didn't elect you to run the city. Is it the city manager? Is it the city comptroller? Is it the city attorney? Because we're paying everybody an awful lot of money to take care of that, and somebody dropped the buck. I'd love to know who it is. One last thing. On the use of the COVID funds, did the federal government remove hiring state and local government staff back to pre-pandemic levels in their new response? Is it still in there? I understand that the state does not want us to use that money for recurring costs. Well, the state's in Albany. They don't see what's going on up here. You don't live in Ogdensburg. You don't work in Ogdensburg. You work for Ogdensburg. Somebody needs to listen to the taxpayers, because you want to open up marijuana? You want to open up a marijuana business in town? Yeah, it's legal. How many people are going to be smoking it, driving all over Ogdensburg? You got these bikes that run around. I can tell you, I get up early in the morning. They're normally meth heads at a store getting breakfast that they haven't eaten in 5 days. That's what I see at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't know when you guys get up there, but that's what I see. And normally there's one worker in it nice and easy, and they got 2 or 3 derelicts sitting outside. So me personally, I don't want to see cops caught. And I suggest you guys, everyone up here, find a way that that doesn't happen. So.
More police myself.
Well, you're not going to get more police.
Hello again. I appreciate the sales tax preempt update by Mr. Jelly and the recitation of the history that led us where we are today. It was educational, so I thank you for that. Besides more lobbying effort maybe by our elected officials, I do think it might be worthwhile to try to help citizens in communicating with their elected representatives. So what I'm thinking is get a sample letter and post it at the website of the city, or run an ad in the journal, please write your legislator, and here's the language to use, and here's the addresses of these elected representatives for you to send a communication, or here are their email addresses. Okay, I mean, I know I belong to a lobbying group where I work, and when there's an issue that comes up that's of importance, I get an email, I go to the site, they've got the language there, I type in my name, and it's gone to my elected representative. So we don't have that technology, but something along that mindset I think might be worthwhile if you're looking to rally broad community support in an effort to get the success that we want out of this change in our sales tax. And then quickly, I appreciate tonight that I was able to complete my presentation without interruption. That hasn't always been the case. And so I thank you for that.
Thank you. Well, that's a good idea.
Call to action.
Prisons, right?
Call to action.
Kathy, is there anyone attending remotely? Oh, I'm sorry. No, come on up. We finish this and then we go on.
Good evening. My name is Richard Breen. I forgot to tell everybody, I was born and raised here all my life. Lived in the second ward. Okay. I left when I was 18 years old, did my 20 years in the service, came home. I was always coming home. I knew I was coming home. Some of the people that were elected in some of the meetings I attended, I always said the same thing when they were running for office. Is this your home? Yeah, this is my home. And I don't like the way I see things, first of all. Mr. Mack, I don't know about no test for a fireman, the interim fireman exam. As far as I can recall, the CSC test for us was given to Canton months ago. So they don't even have a book out here for me to find out where the test should be. It all comes out of Canton. So what does he got to do with the test I'm going to be taking at all? To answer questions, put a question in there. That's, to me, it's all got to come out of Canton. How did he do what he did? That's what I want to know. You're the only one that can answer, Mr. Jelly. So I don't want them I'm not a constituent. I am a town person. I don't want them to answer it. I don't want them to tell me. I'm not asking Mr. Scamparelli, Mr. Kennedy, Mr. Skelly, Mr. Reese, Mr. Powers, I'm asking you, how did you get opportunity to put questions and say, this is the exams that we want. We don't want to do anything else. That's what bothers me. I've worked in the government for over 20 years. I know how it works. I know what a captain does. I know if I'm below the captain, my whole purpose in life is to become the captain. Okay? That's what I don't see here. Mr. Skelly's got something to do with the tax situation. Used to me, that I've heard this evening are the only ones that knew anything about a lot of it. Mr. Scamparelli didn't because you guys were all in a great big feud. I think all 7 of you need to have a whole meeting by yourselves with a mediator in the middle for one project at a time. The big master one first and say, what do you think we should do? Where do you think we should go? He should be there too. The other question I got is the city charter. When we change something in the city charter, everything needs to be changed at the same time, whatever it is. City clerk wants to change whatever it is. Say they want to get rid of us having a lawyer there. Okay, but you can't change it now. But you can, because the charter states we have to have a charter commission every 10 years. But does it say anywhere that we can't have one now? Because I got 7 counselors saying we want another charter commission this year to go through our charter. I'm done.
Dick, it was recently changed to 6. So.
Well, that's fine, the 6,
Yeah.
but still, we got charter stuff that
Right.
we need to have taken.
I agree.
Why can't you say it one time in one meeting? That's what we want to do. And second is, I don't know where this thing that I was reading out today, I looked at the schedule for this meeting, and I didn't see anything about marijuana on the city website. That's for my next meeting.
Is there anyone remotely attending?
The first individual is registered as Penny Sharrow, and I will unmute that individual now. It appears you're self-muted. Here's your line is open.
Okay, first question I have for is Mr. Jelly. Did you mention Waddington? You went to Waddington to ask them about their beach, or did you say that?
Somebody sent,
I heard Waddington mention when he was discussing the beach. Did you go to Waddington to ask them about their beach?
someone from Waddington offered help. I can't remember.
No answer? I don't hear anything.
I just did, I think someone from Waddington may have sent me something with the offering help, and I passed it on to Steve.
I can't hear I didn't hear what the answer was. I asked if he just went up there and asked them questions. When you have the former rec director, when our beach was open before, I'm all for a beach, don't get me wrong. I love running the pool. I ran the city beach for 6 or 7 years. I've run the city pool for 20 some years. All right, so I think I've got some aquatics experience, and I'm not blowing my own horn. I'm giving you some truth here. But you've got the former rec director when the beach was open. You've got the former beach director here. You don't come to anybody in town locally to ask any advice of anything. To me, that's kind of a slap in the face, and I think it's wrong. I know a lot of people are excited about the idea of a beach. I think it's wonderful. It would be a wonderful idea. It's being done too quickly. Too quickly. Handicapped people should not have to call and find out some way of getting down that hill. It should be handicap accessible. If you took this a year out, built a couple of pavilions down there, had a nice walkway or some kind of a tow type situation where you get them down up that hill, that would be great. There's a lot of other little stipulations in there. Do I find a 1/4 inch of rain, a significant rainfall to test that water with? Absolutely not. But that's me. I don't think a 1/4 inch of rain is a significant rainfall to test that water, but that's what they ran with. And I have been talking to people, yes. So that's how it goes. I think it's being done too quickly. I said, hopefully this isn't going to ruin anything for the kids in this town and the pool and everything. But and I would love to see a beach, but it's being done too fast. This is something that needs to take time and a lot of thought to get it done and get it done right. Waddington's beach wasn't built in a day or a month and a half. Lovely idea, but it needs to be worked out and thought out. My other comment is on Doug's stipulation of the Davisky Center. I do think your rec director needs to be in that center down there. It was built and named after Ed Davisky, who was a big recreation proponent in this town and set up the rec committee. That was in his honor. It wasn't built for the Chamber of Commerce. They should be able to share that building. And there has to, when Laura's over in Canton at the county Chamber of Commerce meetings, who's going to open the building for the people? Are we going to have a custodian there? Are they going to have a custodian there? Are there going to be workers there year round? I mean, has that been thought out? I think your recreation director needs a home base, and that should be it, not stuck in the second floor in this building right here where people don't have as much access to her. She'd be much further ahead down there. Those are just my opinions as a citizen, as an employee, as your employer, whatever the case may be. And one last thing, cutting the policemen at night. I've seen those bikes riding around at 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I hear them, and I've seen where they land a lot of times. You need to have that night shift on, and cutting police is another amenity that's being ripped away from us, and we pay taxes, and we deserve to have safety first. Not a beach rushed into, not these kind of little priorities on the side. You need to think about the citizens a little bit more thoroughly than what I'm seeing. And I'm sorry, but I had to raise my hand and say something. And I don't think you need to go out of town. It's nice to get other people's opinions, but you don't need to go out of town to ask for some advice on certain things. I think we've got pretty experienced people here in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Penny. Is there anyone else? Kathy?
I do not see any other hands raised.
We do have a need for an executive session to discuss proposed pending or current litigation. So I will make a motion to move to executive session. Do I have a second?
I'll second. Any action coming up?
No. Well, we do not anticipate any action following the executive session. So if someone likes, well, first let's vote on it. So we have would you call the roll for executive session?
Counselor Reish?
Yes.
Counselor Scamperly?
Yes.
Mayor Skelly?
Yes.
Counselor Jelaba?
Yes.
Counselor Fisher?
Yes.
Counselor Kennedy?
Yes.
Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Approved.
So we have a vote.
He's done.
Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn.
Made.
Last second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is that
Opposed?
motion for both executive sessions?
Yes. There's only
Yeah,
gonna be one.